You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening? Welcome into your Locked On Syracuse Thursday episode. It's a boy OV saying thank you so much for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today and every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. That's your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's Jase medical.com. It's a Locked On Syracuse Thursday. Syracuse, Purdue, Saturday night game, NBC, Syracuse alum Noah Eagle on the call. It's a fun game, an exciting game, a huge matchup, especially when you consider how electric last year's matchup in the Dome was with Syracuse and Purdue. You got the Okechukwu pick six. You've got the Gadsden game winner. Syracuse had no business winning that football game. They played terribly, except they hung along somehow and scored when it mattered in an absolutely incredible fourth quarter. I remember watching it. I couldn't make it to the Dome that day. Caught the fourth quarter. Unbelievable game. Probably the big coming out party for Syracuse last season when you think about it. You weren't sure who they were, weren't sure what that team was. And that game against Purdue said, all right, maybe this team can fight. Maybe this team is legit. And that is what we talk about today. The questions that we have around Syracuse football, because this is a game that is going to give you a ton of answers. So for today's episode, you're Locked On Syracuse Thursday. We're going to talk 5 questions that I have heading into this Syracuse-Purdue Saturday night 7:30 matchup that should be nothing short of as exciting as last season. It's not a huge week in college football. This is honestly one of the bigger games, one of the more exciting games, I think you could argue, given what happened last season. Purdue has been up and down a little bit this year. They lost in week 1 to Boise State. Didn't look great. Came back last week and beat an ACC opponent in Virginia Tech. They're 1-1. Let's take a look at some questions surrounding this Boilermakers team, some questions surrounding Syracuse, and just the general big questions that I have heading into this matchup. The first question is that this is the litmus test for Syracuse. So the question right now is, how good is Syracuse actually? Syracuse is one of 2 teams in the country with the top 10 scoring offense and scoring defense, them in Oklahoma. They lead the country in points per game allowed, with 3.5 points per game allowed through 2 weeks. They are one of the top highest scoring offenses in the country. However, they played Colgate in Western Michigan. They played an FCS team in the middle of the pack amidst a coaching change, mediocre, non-Power 5 Western Michigan. They've done what they need to do. They've been outstanding, but they haven't played anyone. And that's something that Ryan Walters, the new head coach over at Purdue, talked about a little bit in his press conference for the Syracuse game earlier in the week. Some fans a little bit angry with what he said, talking about how, they beat Colgate and Western Michigan. They did what they need to do, but they haven't done anything. All right? They haven't done anything. And that's correct. You haven't gone out and made a statement. You won games that, respectively, Carlos Del Rio Wilson could have handled pretty comfortably. Your second stringers could have handled pretty comfortably in the most part. You're not telling much. Week 3 tells you what this team can do. You're playing your first true opponent, the first quality team. You're going on the road. It's a sold-out game. It's a team that probably has some sour taste in their mouth from last year. It's a fan base that probably feels the same way. And instead of you playing a home game where the crowd is on your side and quiet when you're on offense and making noise throwing off the opposing team when they're on offense, the switch is going to be flipped. You're going to be dealing with an angry, probably fired up Big Ten fan base in a sold-out game that wants some blood. that wants to be back, that wants to win, get back into the winning column, and have a winning record early on this season. They want Syracuse to pay for what they did last season, right? In a game where they didn't really play very well to deserve that win, and Purdue falls short, right? It's going to be a tough environment, and this game is going to tell you who Syracuse is. If Syracuse comes in, handles their business against Purdue, it's a team that I think is going to start. They got a few, I believe, in terms of coaches poll votes, maybe. But this is a team that is going to start pressing the boundaries of being ranked. Whether they deserve it or not, different story. But based on what they've done in the first 2 weeks, if they go out and beat Purdue and become a 3-0 squad with a comfortable win against a Big Ten opponent and a Power 4 squad at this point, they're going to be getting more than a few votes. They could be pushing the top 25. And if they beat Army, which they very much should, heading into Clemson, this is very easily a ranked team. If Syracuse comes out flat against Purdue, if we realize that when you play a team that, recruits at a higher level, plays at a higher level, and just is a far better flat out football team, and they come out and they don't have it, and they don't look the same, and they don't look like they're a strong team, a strong opponent, maybe you pump the brakes. Not maybe, you pump the brakes. You reevaluate a little bit. You got a simple schedule, so you're not completely worried. But this is what the schedule has set you up to do, right? This is what you should do. And this is where I think Ryan Walters was not meaning ill on Syracuse for his comments, but talking about how a middle of the pack college football team whose success metric, quite frankly, is whether or not you make a bowl, why wouldn't you give yourself a couple of gimme games to get in the win column and to make what you have to do in conference play far easier to be playing that 13th game? It makes a lot of sense. So you see, does it work? Does it pan out? The vamping up, the exponential increase in terms of opponent from Colgate to Western Michigan to Purdue. How does Syracuse respond in this game? Second question, and it honestly could have been question number one. That's how important it is. Injuries for the Orange. Oronde Gadsden, David Wallaba, Joe Moore, Kellen Ellis, right? Who's healthy? Who isn't? Wallaba, Gadsden went down against Western Michigan. Moore, Ellis, we have not seen play this year via injury, so we've been told, right? What's going to happen? Can Gadsden play? I was reading some Purdue articles today from their media, from their reporters talking about, and their thoughts were, and it's a good point, why are you going to rush Gadsden back in a non-conference game? Obviously, he's been getting medical attention, obviously been going through treatment this week. How bad it is, we don't know. We haven't known. We haven't been told, right? If he comes out and plays, it's a different game for Syracuse. If he doesn't, you look at the wide receiving core, who has showed out and balled out in the first 2 weeks, but now they've got to show a little bit more, right? Who wants to step up? Who wants to have that big day? Can Alford be a wide receiver one? Can Isaiah Jones be a wide receiver one? Can Amari Hatcher continue what he's been doing against a better defense? Can Donovan Brown continue to build on the immaculate start that he has had to this season, right? What can Syracuse do right now? Can the receivers step up? Same goes for the O-line. Can Wallaba play? We don't have the update on Wallaba, last I heard, right? So you've got injury questions, and until you've got answers, which knowing Syracuse, knowing Babers, knowing what they want to do, and this isn't a knock on Babers, this is just natural. You don't need to show your cards right here, right? You don't need to tell the media who's playing, who isn't. You let your team figure it out. You let your staff do what they need to do, and you'll figure that out Saturday night when you're watching warmups, when you're watching the team get loose. That is when you figure this thing out. You're not going to have this information all too much earlier than that. It's going to be, who are your reporters that travel? Emily Leiker, the primary one, honestly, right? Maybe Matt Park, you're going to see the tweet, Gadsden in street clothes, or Gadsden warming up with the receivers and tight ends, or Wallaba in street clothes, right? These are the tweets that we get pregame. That's the coverage that we get. That's what you start to see. I don't think you'll have an answer before that, but you need guys to step up. In terms of the O-line, you look at Mark Petrie, played about a half of football against Western Michigan. You look at what he can do, but this is now an O-line that, is going Enrique Cruz, Chris Bleich, John Ray Reed, Jacob Bradford, and David Wallaba. Or not David Wallaba, and Mark Petrie, most likely, right? Joe Moore was supposed to be the starter at right guard. Wallaba was supposed to be your right tackle starter. Both been through injury, right? We don't know who's back yet, and we'll figure that out on Saturday night. That's the second big question. Let's take a break. We got 3 more questions to really dive into this Syracuse-Purdue matchup, because I think it is going to be one of the more fun games of the year, especially looking at what this, obviously the 3-game stretch against the best 3 teams in the ACC that Syracuse will play is exciting, right? But I think this is a fun opportunity just with the excitement and the buzz that last year caused and being on the road and it being Syracuse's first road test. This is an exciting game. So 3 more questions after a quick word about Jace Medical. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. It's simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Questions. Syracuse, Purdue, Saturday night, Big Ten country. Let's ride. We got questions on your Locked On Syracuse Thursday. We're doing this pretty much weekly at this point. I didn't necessarily plan to do it, but I like it. Let me know your thoughts on it. Would you rather me steer away from the question style preview, and then the Friday episode will be your more standard preview, what to look for, keys, predictions, things of that nature? Would you like the Thursday episode to be more of a deep dive into Syracuse's opponent? Let me know in the comments on YouTube. Tweet at me, X at me, whatever. I don't know how to say it. I'll never figure that out anymore. The DMs are open over there, as well as just a tweet at LO_Syracuse. What are your thoughts? What do you want to do in terms of Thursday and Friday preview coverage? Very open to knowing what you all want to hear to allow me to make this the most beneficial for you as the listener and the viewer. Question number 3. Syracuse has 2 new coordinators. We know this. That's not groundbreaking in terms of a question. But Jason Beck and Rocky Long have had 2 gimme games to start their tenure at Syracuse as coordinators. But they have not necessarily had to open the playbook too extensively. And my question in week 3 is, what new cards do we see from Beck? And what new cards do we see from Rocky Long in the first true test of the season? Are they going to start to show their actual hands? Because in the first 2 weeks, they have not had to show what they actually can do. They have not had to show the big twists and tricks and intricacies of their offense or defense. They've been able to float by on some basics and keep a lot of things under lock and key. Those of you who play poker and know poker, right, they're folding face down. Or they're not folding face down. They're getting the whole table to fold, and they're not tabling their hand. They're not saying, yeah, I had the straight. I had the flush. They're putting their cards straight back into the muck and playing another hand. You will not know what they had until this week, where Purdue is going to continue the poker reference, to call that bet. And you're going to have to show your cards after the 5th streak. You're going to need to show what's going on. So here we go. What do they have in store? And what is this team right now? Because we don't know. There have been rumblings that's probably why we haven't seen Damian Alford targeted as much as we would have assumed, right? We thought he was going to be the number 1 receiving option outside of Gadsden. Hasn't really been so thus far? Is that because they're holding back and a lot of the playbook that uses him has yet to be uncovered? Are they going to show some more trickery, some different motions, some different movement? Are they going to show my prediction in terms of Jason Beck is they're going to put the ball on the floor a little bit more. They're going to use Schrader a lot more than they have had to in weeks 1 and 2. Schrader's really only run so far. Obviously, there's an instance or two where this isn't true, but Schrader's really only run so far when he's been flushed out or the play isn't, coming to fruition downfield. I think you're going to start to see a little more designed run, a little bit more creative freedom for Schrader to pull the ball, hand it off to LeQuint, hand it off to Ike Daniels, whatever, or pull the ball back with some more designed runs. We're not really sure what Purdue can do on that front. Can they keep Schrader in check? It's something that we're not sure, right? New coaches, new systems, new schemes over there, just like happening at Syracuse, although the same coach in terms of the head coach. Same with Rocky Long, right? He's shown some basics, been blitzing a lot, showing the 3-3-5, doing what you're used to. Are there any different intricacies that are pulled out against this Purdue squad? This is the first time you're going to start to see the true changes between Tony White and Rocky Long on the defensive side, and the true changes between Robert Anae and Jason Beck on the offensive side. I'm really excited to see some of the more difficult and different intricacies that they're going to break out against a better opponent. And also, how much of the playbook are you bringing out still, right? You're going to slowly unveil this, or is the whole thing going to be active? Are you building up to conference play? These are all questions that we'll figure out. Sub-questions within our question number 3. Question number 4 is going to focus and hone in a little bit more on the defense for Syracuse. And how does Syracuse handle Hudson Card, right? You had Aiden O'Connell last season, who got his fill against Syracuse in that Purdue-Syracuse game in the Dome. Played a phenomenal game, outstanding, now is in the NFL. I believe with the Raiders, correct me if I'm wrong. Hudson Card is a little bit different of a quarterback. And Hudson Card, based on interviews that I've seen from Ryan Walters in his weekly press conference, is still learning this new system with Purdue. And they're trying to turn him a little bit more into a dual threat guy and a guy that can run a little bit more of an option and do what Syracuse focuses a lot on with Schrader is that decision making, that when do I hand the ball off? When do I keep it for myself? And those type decisions. They're trying to import with Hudson Card, and they're trying to implement with Card this season. He's still getting the hang of it. He's still new. He's a very, very strong talent. How can Syracuse handle it? Because they haven't really had to face a true quarterback threat. And they've kept both teams they've played in check outside of one play this season, and it had nothing to do with the quarterback. It had to do with Western Michigan breaking through for a 75-yard score. Syracuse has locked down opposing teams offensively in the passing game. How do things change with a quarterback in Hudson Card, who, this is not groundbreaking, this is not me breaking any news, is by far the best quarterback the Orange have faced so far this season? How do they handle that? The secondaries look strong. The secondary's done their part. Can they continue to step it up? Can they keep a quarterback that the opposing coach that Purdue wants to make a little bit more mobile, wants to be able to run with? Can they keep him locked down, right? They haven't truly had to spy a quarterback or do anything too crazy in terms of shutting down a dual threat quarterback. I don't know if I want to chalk Hudson Card up to dual threat just yet, but it seems like that's what this Boilermaker offense wants to make him and wants to get going as they do what Syracuse is doing, right? Head into Big Ten play, head into conference play. They want to be able to keep building, keep elevating their offense and defense. So how does SU's defense handle Hudson Card, who is a quarterback that they haven't seen yet and a style that they haven't really had to truly guard and cover, right? Colgate technically has a dual threat quarterback. Yeah, that doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't, right? You're not – it's a drastically different situation in terms of dual threat. Hudson Card, they want him to be. How can they react? How can they do what they need to do? I look at the linebackers a lot in this situation and who steps up there. It's going to be getting pressure, continuing to flush them out, make the decisions for Hudson Card even more difficult. Rocky Long's been showing pressure a lot, and it's been working, right? McDonald getting to the quarterback. Marlo Wax has been an absolute presence. Okechukwu doing his thing, right? What can Syracuse do? What can Rocky Long do to keep this, newer style Purdue offense in check, specifically Hudson Card, who is a guy that Dino highlighted in his press conference this week as a hell of a player, right? He really is. And he's a guy that Syracuse is going to have to be focused in on to have success in this game. Let's take one more break. And our final question of the week after a word from our friends over at Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. That's where Game Time comes in. It's a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. There's flash deals, last-minute tickets. They're easy to find and buy for every kind of event in your area with image seat views, low price guarantees, and event cancellation protection. Get exclusive fast or flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Get images of your seats before you buy and buy the tickets in a matter of seconds. It's 2 taps and you're set. It's like liking a photo. That's how quick this is. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The fifth question of the day, the final question for me in Syracuse football, is a question that I've been alluding to all day. But my big question is, how does this team play on the road? We haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen the true test of a road match. And in terms of first road matches, this is a difficult one. Big Ten football is no joke. Purdue football, although has not had incredible success the last 2 seasons and this year, is no joke. And their fans are going to be rowdy, in your face. The students are sold out. The place is sold out. It's a night game on a Saturday night, ready to make some noise. Syracuse and Garrett Schrader are going to have to show what they can do in terms of dealing with noise. They might have to go to a silent count, depending on how loud that place gets. Remember, Purdue's coaching staff last year said the Dome was one of the toughest environments they've had to play in because of how the sound echoes and how the sound just gets louder in that more contained space. Purdue's going to put together an environment that's going to be equally, maybe not equally, but incredibly different and difficult on the Syracuse offense. Let me throw this out there as well. It's a Syracuse offense that has struggled in terms of penalties in home games. And you look at Chris Bleich, who's, I believe, got 4 false starts on the season. You look at the rest of the O-line, who is not the group that you anticipated starting, right? With Joe Moore out and David Wallaba struggling with injury and Kellen Ellis also struggling with injury. You don't know what this is. You got a youthful O-line in terms of time played together. And this is going to be the day that says, what is this O-line? Are they mature enough to handle it? Are they ready to rise to the occasion? Or is a road crowd and a lot of noise while you're trying to snap the ball going to cause issues for Syracuse? Penalties crippled this team last year. You think of what the turning point was for Syracuse in that Clemson game, a late hit, whether it was a late hit or not, another question. But penalties gives Clemson a first down. The rest is history. Syracuse loses the next 5 games. Penalties have hurt the Orange recently. They're one of the worst teams in college football in terms of penalties last year. And this year, they haven't fixed all too much of it. So can they, another sub-question here, can the O-line step it up, do what they need to do, and can the Syracuse offense communicate and succeed given what's about to be noise-wise at this Purdue game? Any other questions you got, fire them off in the comments. I got questions as well, other comments that I didn't get to today or other questions I didn't get to. This is a big game for Schrader, I think, in his legacy in my mind in Syracuse, right? He's had his ups and downs. He's had good games and bad games. This is one that I look at with a deeper lens, I think, than most games for him. I look at the run game for Syracuse. It had good moments. It's had bad moments. How do they work to develop the run game with Schrader, without Schrader, in terms of the running backs and also with the quarterback? Those things mainly. What other questions you got? Fire them off in the comments on YouTube. Do what you need to do to join the conversation. I don't know if we'll go live after this Purdue game. I would assume we probably wouldn't be able to go live till 11:30. So maybe not. We might do a Sunday morning live episode that we can tune in for before your NFL football slate. But I will get you the information on that as soon as I figure it out. Until then, it's been your Locked On Syracuse Thursday. I'm Owen Valentine, and thank you so much for making us your first listen today and every day. We're still free and available wherever you get podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Have a great day. Be kind. Make somebody smile today. Do something good for yourself. Enjoy. I'll catch you tomorrow with a Purdue preview. Peace.